The value of one United States dollar relative to one Chinese yuan renminbi did not rise over 7 for a considerable amount of time. It was something of a legend in the collective consciousness of the Chinese people and the rest of the globe. However, this fallacy has been debunked in recent times. The psychological barrier of 7 was overcome by the US dollar exchange rate against the yuan September 15, 2020. Following it, there was a quickening in the rate of depreciation. In a span of less than 2 weeks, on September 28th, the value of the US dollar offshore and onshore versus the renminbi hit a new record low, falling below the level of 7.2 against the renminbi for the first time since 2020 and 28 respectively. In point of fact, the rate of exchange between the US dollar and the US dollar and the ER cub has been steadily deteriorating ever since the end of April 2022. In the past year, the RMB has experienced a decline of almost 12. The Chinese Communist Party, or CC, is frustrated as a result of the rapid depreciation of the RMB, which has led to the sale of shares by foreign investors. According to the state news agency of China, Xinhua, the aggressive increase in interest rates by the American Federal Reserve is a strategy chosen by the United States after repeatedly weighing its calculations with the intention of transferring the crisis outward through the hegemonic of the American dollar, which essentially harms others and harms the world. This strategy was chosen by the United States after the United States repeatedly weighed its calculations with the intention of transferring the crisis outward through the hegemonic of the Americans. Some people also believe that the United States has been the cause of the rest of the world's problems for a considerable amount of time. In point of fact, due to the recent devaluation of non-U.S. currencies across the board, the exchange rates of the euro, the pound, and the Japanese yen have all reached multi. However, what people throughout the world can clearly see is that the RMB is faltering, just like every other currency. Despite the fact that the CP has a firmer hold on the market than the majority of other governments throughout the globe, the RMB was put under pressure to devalue 6 years ago in 2016 when the US RMB mid-price reached 6.96 at one time. The Chinese central bank deployed substantial sums of foreign cash to suspend the exchange rate before it reached 7 on August 5, 2019. The effect of the trade war between the United States and China at the time caused the value of one US dollar in terms of received to drop below 7, marking a new low point for the pair in the last 11 years, then increased in value after that, eventually reaching 6.3 at one time. Because of this, the market has had an expectation for a considerable amount of time that the RMB will continue to be at 7 and that China's central bank will utilize policy tools to maintain the exchange rate constant below this number. Once this threshold is crossed, market expectations of future retrade depreciation may be raised. This may cause investors to withdraw foreign money at an accelerated rate, which will make it much more difficult to maintain the stability of the exchange rate. 2 new policies were implemented by the People's Bank of China on September 5 and September 26 in an effort to halt the deteriorating trend of the RMB exchange rate. The purpose of both of these actions was to put a brake on the appreciation of foreign currencies, make it more expensive to short the RMB, and relieve some of the pressure that was being put on the RMB to depreciate. On the other hand, it is now obvious that these 2 steps were ineffective as a result of the RMB drop that occurred on September 28. People who are familiar with the matter told Reuters on September 29 that China's central bank had asked major state-owned banks to prepare to sell dollars in the offshore market in an effort to step up efforts to curb the devaluation of the RMB. As a result of this strong message to defend the RMB from further decline, the RMB exchange rate has experienced a slight recovery. The RMB exchange rate had unfortunately continued to decline on the 30th of September. The RMB exchange rate certainly took a nosedive, but what caused it? The aggressive policy of the Federal Reserve to increase interest rates comes to mind first, of course. In an effort to combat the greatest inflation in over 40 years, the Federal Reserve has increased interest rates a total of 5 times in 2022, bringing the total increase to 300 basis points. As soon as Fed officials published another signal to raise interest rates on September 27th, it instantly provoked market worries of a worldwide recession. By September 28th, the dollar index had reached 114, establishing a new high for the first time in more than 20 years. The value of the RMB currency plummeted as a direct result of the sustained increase in the dollar index's strength. In addition to that, the decline in the RMB exchange rate might be attributed to a number of other variables. In order to jumpstart the country's sluggish economy, the People's Bank of China, PBOC, has had to reduce interest rates many times. As a result, the difference in treasury rates between China and the United States has become negative. At this time, there is an inversion of 100 basis points. This is because China's economy has been experiencing a slowdown recently, in addition to the additional effects that the zero-COVID policy has had on the economy. At the same time, the external environment for the Beijing administration has become more difficult, particularly in light of the Communist Party of China's CPD decision to create an alliance with Russia in the course of its conflict with foreign powers. Additionally, it has resulted in fighting in the Taiwan Strait and other areas, which in turn has lately led to a definite trend of foreign investors withdrawing from the Chinese market. What repercussions would the recent drop in the RMB exchange rate have on China? Here is what the official Chinese specialists have to say about the matter. Either an increase or a decrease in the value of a country's currency, as well as both the benefits and the drawbacks of doing so, are both plausible explanation. It is not accurate to state that any increase in value is to be celebrated, while any decrease in value should be seen as a cause for concern. To be more specific, the recent change in the exchange rate for the Chinese yuan is obviously beneficial to market entities that have foreign exchange incomes and foreign exchange assets. On the other hand, the adjustment may bring certain losses to market entities that have external payment needs or external liabilities. Is this indeed the situation? We have taken the opinions of a China specialist and rewritten them here to give you some new perspective. To begin, this damages the reputation of the Sichtbeep. If GDP per capita were computed in American dollars, the results for China would both be negative. Even if China's GDP increases by 3, this translates to a 9G decline when measured in terms of the US dollar. The propaganda department of the CP has an uphill battle when it tries to extol the virtues of a villainous individual, both on the home front as well as abroad. In particular, for a significant amount of time, the Department of Propaganda has been making use of those who call themselves experts in order to promote the idea that China's economy has overtaken that of the United States. Because of the precipitous drop in GDP data, it will be difficult for the publicity department to present it in a good light. The second genuine and quite severe issue is that it alters the expectations of investors. When contemplating large investments in mainland China, investors will undoubtedly take the risk posed by the exchange rate into consideration. Investors are going to be more wary if the predictions of a declining RMB come true. For instance, if one invested their dollars in China a year ago and received a 5 capital gain when converting to RMB, only to now convert back to us and receive 10 less, the loss on this investment since 2018, when the trade war between the U.S. and China began, outweighs the gain that was made on the investment. Premier Li Keqiang of China has been referring to 6 assurances and 6 stabilities in recent remarks. Among them include calming customers' fears and shielding market participants from harm. Today, the trade war is still going on, and there have been reports of a new outbreak in China, because investors' choices are significantly impacted by expectations on the path that Red would take. Premier Li has continued to stress the importance of the policy up until now. The Wall Street Journal reported on September 15, 2022, that foreign investors reduced their holdings of Chinese bonds by another 5.1 billion used in August, and that a total of more than 85 billion of Chinese bonds have been cut since February, which is equivalent to about 15 of holdings at the end of January 2022. The Wall Street Journal also reported that foreign investors reduced their holdings of Chinese bonds in August by another 5.1 billion used in total. Inflation is the third consequence of a weakening RMB currency. The Chinese economy is strongly reliant on commerce with other countries. It is the country that brings in the most crude oil, food, semiconductors, and other goods from across the world. A decrease in a decrease in rider expenses for domestic products, which in turn causes prices to increase. Fourth, a decrease in RMB results in a significant rise in the weight of the need to make expenditures. The majority of China's external debt, which amounts to 2.7 trillion US dollars, will be paid off this year and the next year. As a result of the decline in the RMB, cost of servicing debt for Chinese corporations and financial institutions would be significantly higher. The Chinese government and its many organizations and departments are responsible for the majority of the country's external debt. In particular, there will be a great deal of pressure placed on the foreign debt that has been issued by government departments, such as those of the province and local government.